two key questions, and you can think about it during the presentations that will be coming up after this. But the idea is to first help us to think about what were the key highlights from the week for you. I'm going to be giving an overview of the key highlights that we've distilled from discussions with the session conveners, the symposium conveners, and the scientific steering committee. But of course, you may have an idea that needs to be included also, and certainly we'd like to hear from you. The other thought is that we'd like to know how has your thinking changed? How has this symposium altered your outlook on climate change and the world's oceans? And so likewise, we'd like to hear what take-homes you have come to from being at this session, and what is different in your thinking as you head home. And this allows us to not only gather that information within the symposium organization team, but it also helps you to think about how you might communicate the results of this symposium to others at your home organization. Okay. Okay. All right. For you latecomers, the idea is that you need a white, if you don't have a white piece of paper that has been handed out there, you should grab one. And what we're looking for is to get information on your impressions of the symposium. And there's two types of questions. On the first side, we want you to talk about what were the highlights that you got from this symposium. I'll be presenting the results of what came out of the discussions with the symposium conveners, the session conveners, the scientific steering committee, but you might have some clever ideas that none of us thought of. And the other piece would be to think about how has your thinking changed and how will you communicate that back to your own organization. And we'd really like you to think about that during the next few minutes while we go through the next piece. The other piece that I want to remind you, and I said this this morning at the opening session, we are seeking presentation. Tracy Gill, I think, is still here. And if you didn't make it to the announcements for the opening session, we are looking for seminars that can be put up onto a NOAA seminar series that's distributed widely, and it doesn't have to be a U.S. citizen. We'd like presentations from anyone, and so please contact her, and her email address is here. And then please remember that you will be contacted by the symposium organizing committee to get an online survey on we want your input on what the 5th effects of climate change on the world's ocean symposium should look like, and what worked, what didn't, and how can we do a better job when we start planning for the next one. Okay, any questions on that? Yes. Right. So Tracy, do you want to give the question was, can you explain a little more about the online seminars?
Sure. And also, we have a list. If you want to get added to our seminar list, there's 5,300 people and 2 emails on it. So you can just send me an email and say, add me to your weekly NOAA seminar email list, and you will get on it. If you're in the U.S., I can't pay anybody, but you can give a webinar from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada, and we'd love to have you, and it'll go out to the list. And it's a great way to get your work out there. Even we welcome students. We'd love to have student work. Anybody's work is welcome as long as it's related to science and atmosphere, or oceans and atmosphere. So the format is 1 hour over our lunchtime. It's a brown bag. People are eating their lunch. It's very relaxed, very friendly, low key. It's a great seminar. So there's 40 seminars at NOAA. So this is all of them are listed on this seminar list. And there's a website called, just Google NOAA Science Seminar, and you'll find it email me if you have any questions.
Okay. So now I have the fun job of kind of trying to sum up what we have accomplished during this time together. And just by the numbers, we're all scientists here. So there were 669 registrations from 51 countries. There were 18 sessions, 11 workshops. Oh, I'm sorry, there were 4 town halls. The slide didn't get updated. 4 receptions, 13 plenary speakers from 13 nations, 350 oral presentations, 158 posters, and 102 students. So let's give ourselves a... All right. How did we do geographically? You can see the statistics again. 2015 was the 3rd Effects of Climate Change on the World's Ocean Symposium, and we have almost doubled that. Now, granted, there's a big North American contribution, but if you can see as you split this out geographically, we are increasing our numbers throughout the world, and this is really a positive sign for the symposium and the interest that we're gaining in terms of other regions of the planet and in terms of reaching out to young scientists throughout the planet. Now, I'm not a Twitter person. I am on Twitter, but to tell you whether these are good statistics or bad statistics, you people who are Twitter people will know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. But anyway, we are making ourselves known worldwide, and I'm happy for it. And certainly, if you haven't tweeted, please do, so we can increase our statistics. At the beginning of this meeting, there were some key messages that Jason brought forward. He wanted us to think carefully about what are the big picture things that he thought that we would cover. The first one, of course, is oceans matter. They are an important element in the climate cycle, and we certainly need to pay attention to them. Oceans are changing, and there's much at stake in terms of global climate change. We are certainly advancing our understanding of the changes and risks associated with climate change, and we are endeavoring to find solutions to the climate change that is likely to occur no matter what between now and 2050, and then to look at futures after that. And so that I just wanted to remind you before I went forward of the sort of overarching themes of this symposium. So what have we gained? The first sort of take-home message, and you'll see a little red box in each of my slides now. The oceans and the social ecological systems that depend on them are changing, and we are seeing species on the move. We are seeing borealization, which is a new term to me, of the Barents Sea with similar signals occurring in the Bering Sea, and perhaps even similar signals in Antarctica. Certainly, the take-home message from the Arctic is my favorite one from Fran Ulmer. What happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic, but you can see this region is changing rapidly, and society is taking note of it. The second sort of key takeaway from all of this is our understanding of the social ecological systems has improved to allow us to contrast the ecological and human impacts under different future scenarios. And those coupled biophysical and social integrated programs are providing opportunities to look at what is our ability to adapt to the future. And many of them are saying that our adaptation options are going to be more limited if we remain on the high emissions scenario. And of course, some of the key favorite quotes from this was Manuel's "Inaction is maladaptation," and Greta Pessel saying, "Adapting to species redistribution requires all hands on deck." And I must say, this is a figure from Kirsten Holtzman's talk, and certainly to pull one of these fully integrated social, ecological, integrated climate research programs together does take all hands on deck. The third take-home message is that tactical and strategic opportunities for adaptation to climate change have been revealed through engagement. And there's been a concerted effort to try and reach out to communities that are impacted by climate change. And instead of a top-down sort of, this is how you should adapt approach, we have found that there's much better buy-in and uptake of different adaptation strategies when you work locally and engage the stakeholders from the get-go. And two quotes here that are related to this are, "The narrative dictates how you see change," and certainly I think that was a useful sort of quote in terms of thinking about how you present these adaptation options, as well as adaptation planning is an ongoing and iterative process. It isn't as if you can come in there once and be done. The next piece is that Alistair Hobday indicated that applications and discussions with managers first and science papers second. And we are building the bridge to the gap between the natural and social sciences. The fourth one is that extreme events provide an opportunity to assess human and ecological responses to climate change. It's essentially a stress test, and our ability to predict anomalous ocean conditions on seasonal to decadal timescales is improving. And this is a figure from Mark Payne showing that there are regions of the planet where you can have relatively good correlations between the predicted and observed climate situation in regions of the world. And certainly this will be useful in terms of looking at extreme events, and those extreme events allow us to have a chance to rehearse for the future. The fifth one is that research continues to reveal complex, energetic, and physiological trade-offs associated with adaptation to changing environmental conditions. And there are energetic and physiological costs to that adaptation that must be recognized. And this was recognized in the third Effects of Climate Change in the World's Ocean Symposium. But certainly what is new in terms of this one is the idea that one must look at the entire journey and life cycle of the species and all the multiple stressors that that particular organism experiences. And innovations exist to reveal mechanisms causing changes in growth and mortality and energetic-based movements. And of course, the great one that everybody remembers is the idea of rejoicing in variability. The sixth one is that coastal communities are turning to aquaculture, marine ranching, fish attraction technologies, and the like to fill critical needs for food security. And research is needed to identify the appropriate adaptation actions and good governance through stakeholder engagement and representation. And I think the promising piece of this is that the FAO has published guidelines for small-scale fisheries, which may help in terms of guiding how those small-scale fisheries should be moving in the future. The seventh one is that we can't forget that we need good data. It's easy to build models, it's easy to have cool laboratory experiments, but in the end, you're going to need to have targeted measurements that help you identify things like carbon uptake, ocean acidification, deoxygenation. And global observation networks are going to be critical, and the technological advancements associated with them are going to improve our understanding of key processes, and we need to move ahead on this. The eighth one is that blue carbon solutions are emerging. And you can see that those sort of blue carbon ecosystems are located in regions throughout the world. And certainly we heard this morning that mangroves are a major piece of this. But there are options for moving forward in terms of carbon sequestration. And finally, the international planning and assessment activities that are happening in bodies that are more global than just our regional activities are certainly guiding and informing our research. The Sustainable Development Goals, the IPCC, the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, all of these things are relevant. The one thing that I think all of us have realized throughout this meeting is that it's not just Sustainable Goal 14. It's number 2, it's good health, it's climate action, it is decent work, it is sustainable communities, it is gender equality. We're seeing peace and justice and no poverty. And so you can tell that the majority of these sustainable goals do have links to the ocean, and one could argue even those that I haven't circled are probably candidates for this as well. And so I want to end with sort of a thought of where we're going. There are some new science activities that are coming forward. Genetics and into looking at what the scope is for adaptation, advanced technologies, big data, artificial intelligence, local community adaptation planning, and skill assessment in communities. These are all things that we are on the cusp of integrating into our research activities, and we expect that we will see much more of this. My last slide is my introduction to Bas, and I hope that you guys are ready for it. He has his final presentations. This is his reminder that it is World Oceans Day, and so be happy that it's World Oceans Days, but with that, I'm going to hand it off to Bas, and then we will have some question and answers on the research activities that I just presented.
Date modified. It's the template. Wrong name, but okay. All right. There. Yeah, just to be sure. Yeah, I think so. Maybe we can look how much these are. Yeah, this is it. Yeah. Go down. Yeah. Okay. So it's an overview of the week. Maybe you see some cartoons you already saw, but probably. So we start, of course, with the first day, advancing understanding and responses to changing oceans. This was the opening. Yeah, the iceberg. When thinking about climate change, lots of people think about me. But who is thinking about me? And how to address the urgency of climate change. Know your audience, make it entertaining, and be optimistic. And then we had music, the string quartet Anacostia with the piece Confluence. Don't be a prophet and give hope instead of despair. Otherwise people freeze instead of taking action. Prophetic words. And remember what happens on the Arctic doesn't stay on the Arctic. Okay. Oh no, the Arctic ice is melting. Oh wow, oh, exploit. Business opportunities, resources, it's ours. No, mine. Meanwhile, in the deep sea, we're such old species. We always lived quietly, far from human, and we're not used to change. So how do you think we can adapt to climate change now all of a sudden? These adaptation skeptics are not on Twitter. It's getting warmer, there's less oxygen and less food, but there's also more plastic. Yes, we're clearly drifting in the Anthropocene. And then we are entering the second day, World Environmental Day. It was Tuesday. Shouldn't be every day Environmental Day, right? Probably that's where the problem started. And here are science and practice getting hand in hand together to make sustainable oceans, the ocean we need for the future we want. And here's the ocean of big data. How big is your data? I think that question is a beautiful summary of our zeitgeist, and we need to think more about that. And here's the an ecosystem model, but there are no human decisions in it, and not tipping points. Neither synergy, also no behavior switches. And here natural science and social science try to work together. And there were people talking about an ensemble of models to improve results. Hey guys, it's get too hot here, I'm off. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. And the human says, oh no. Oh, we have enough fish for today. We go home. No, considering my model, you should optimize your profit. Global fish consumption keeps increasing. Oh, nice. More. If models were reality, the probability of a fish, please. Oh, great. We have lots of possible scenarios. I'll estimate a price for you. Catastrophic transition. The case of North Atlantic herring. Catastrophic. I'd rather like to talk about a regime shift. Sound less negative. Mind your audience. And then we're entering the third day, the day after the Norwegian party. Tuna? No, it's compressed watermelon. Maybe this might be the right replacement in case tuna disappears. Vulnerable fishes and climate change. First we have to cope with it. Then we will have to adapt. And then we try to transform. Climate-driven species redistribution. We go north, or we go south, or we go up, or we go down. We focus a lot at our species. Maybe you might show a little more interest to our context, yeah. And don't forget about the species shift and the human health. We know, Species on the move, yeah. Nobody will miss us anyway, as we are perceived the least important sustainability goal. So what's the reason for your flight? Because of deoxygenation. Never heard of that nation. Anyway, what's your reason? Aren't we at risk over here? Well, I have a formula to check that. Let me see. Meanwhile, in an oxygen minimum zone, did you know the joke of these benthic fish becoming extinct? No, tell me. They didn't. Well, most scientists think we did. So now we have deoxygenation and nitrification, plus the lack of ventilation, it's time for a long vacation. Species shifting. Okay, now let's go there. Good idea. Wait, we have still not agreement there. And back at the Pacific Islands. Because of those high concentrations of mercury, we have to change our pelagic fish consumption. Okay, but what to eat now? What about those compressed watermelon? And then it's the fourth day, it was yesterday, we saw a few of them this morning, the day after the poster presentations. We could have a clear prediction of the climate change if that decadal variability would not be in our way. So how did you deal with environmental stress? Well, I started smoking non-stop, which results in more CO2. You know, I'm fed up with those scientists generalizing us. Right, they should see us as individuals. It's not an ecosystem who responds at climate change. We are the ones who respond, all in our own individual way. Oh, come on, it's already complex enough. Excellent ecosystem service. Is it free? Oh, well, we might present you a very big bill soon. Of course, we're not free like you, but we have free healthcare. So summarizing this fourth day, it's all the time more complex than we thought, and it's worse than we thought. But wait, we should be positive and entertaining and look for concrete action. Maybe Friday, the optimist. So, that's Friday, World Oceans Day. Oceans matter, oceans matter, oceans matter. And we talked about the blue carbon ecosystem. Did you know we're responsible for 50% worldwide carbon production? Though we get away with all the credit. On my right hand, aquaculture. At my left hand, the mangrove forests. I assure the fish food for the people, and I assure oxygen to all. The future will be so different, and results of research done will be worthless. And we should learn faster to capture the new situations. This first one blob was exciting, but now they became so ordinary, boring. The Ocean Extreme Collection. Choose the style which fits you the best. Heat wave. No, heat wave. Please mind your audience and become consistent. Okay, now the last one. Hi, darling. So how was your symposium? Great. It's time for action. Okay, thank you.
Bas, if you could come up. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was just so great.
Run away.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Okay, so now our job is somewhat done, and now we're looking for feedback from all of you. You heard my presentation, you heard Bas's summary. It should remind you of all of the ground that we have gone over up till now. What's that? Okay. Okay. Yeah, because didn't we connect, or did we download it?
That's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
let's check, please.
Oh, I thought we were on it. So we have let's spend about 10 minutes if we can, and we'll see how it goes. We'd like to hear from you. What were the key ideas? Did you think our summary got it right? Any takers? What's that? Yes. Mhm. What's that? All right. Yeah.
I just wanted to say Boss was a highlight of my week. He summarized everything so beautifully.
Yes, Gavin.
I think I'll follow that in terms of a highlight. That it's communication. We've been communicating all week, but the campus events, both the mock press conference and the pitch pit, were just fantastic. That's as well as Bass's stuff. I think thinking about different ways of communication, it's really great.
Okay, thank you.
And we should listen to the Aussies.
Yeah, there you go. Any others?
Hi. Yeah, everything was great. Really had a great meeting, and I think your highlights seemed good. There's something just as a general feel of this meeting, though, that it just feels exciting. Like we're kind of on to something new and putting things together in a way that's really nice. And I'm not sure quite what it is that does that. I think it is some of these intangibles in the way that we put things together. But thanks for all the things that you've done to put the pieces together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Other comments, ideas? Big picture questions? Did we get our summary right? Were those basically the right 9 key take-homes?
I'll add a couple. I thought there were 2 other really interesting things, and one was the description of the heat wave and the look at and thinking about how to classify them and the lessons that we might learn from the atmospheric community for the length of time they've had observations and how they catalog them by normals, which is essentially a shifting baseline. And then I guess the second point I wanted to make was the focus on communication and the desire to reach the user, the stakeholder, is something that I think we've spent a lot of time thinking about, and it would be interesting to learn lessons there as well in terms of those that are doing that kind of engagement and how we can move that into the fishing community.
Okay. Okay. Oh, there we go.
Maybe one more. This is really small. Wow. I think we have seen over the week a lot of good examples where social sciences have been, pushing forward, and I think there were a lot of comments on that what we need to put more effort and funding into social sciences and give them, more visibility, because as has been said with communication. I think that a lot of the science that we need on that area is also, we always tend to think that, ocean science is this big machinery, is in big investments in observing systems, but it's about the people, and I think we have realized that throughout the conference, and I think this is one of my take-home messages, and I came kind of with it, but I also take it home.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yes.
Is Alistair still here? Okay, then I can say this. This is about marine heat waves. I was struck by the number of marine heat waves he showed for the last 5 or 6 years, which I think I saw a number of 400 in his presentation. And that led me to think that when there's that many reports of things, it can lead to the general public getting fatigued on the issue. And I wonder if, El Niños come around relatively infrequently, and they're taken seriously, partly because they're not happening all the time. I just wonder whether marine heat waves, as he defined them, and the frequency and the size of them actually can lead to the public getting jaded and eventually not taking them very seriously because they're coming all the time. And I'm thinking there has to be some way we can, perhaps we should try to redefine, perhaps the different scales of them will make a difference. You know, he had different levels, but I worry that the public will just start to ignore them because they start getting reported all the time. That's just a comment. It's a concern of mine.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah, it has been great. The key take-home message I will take back home is the issue of mainstreaming climate change adaptation in most of the ocean management policies, from tsunamis elsewhere, from the impact of coastal erosion on the livelihoods in coastal communities, the issue of marine protected area, how that interfaces with climate change issues. For example, back home, where you have developed programs for marine protected areas trying to establish territorial use right fisheries, and then there is climate change that comes and have a severe impact and shift communities, can force the stakeholders to migrate to other areas. They lose their input, for example, you will have to start all over. So the take-home message is we have to mainstream climate change adaptation in some of the ocean management policies so that we cannot start all over again.
Yeah,
So that's
it's a very good point. And that's maybe a good segue into the, you should all flip your pieces of paper over and to the second question, which was, how has this symposium changed how you think about climate change and the world's oceans? Do you see things that are more urgent than you thought? Do you think there are new methods that you would like to take home and try? Are you inspired? So I'm curious about what you're thinking. Yes?
This kind of overlaps with the first one, but I guess when I go back, I've had cause to think about how adaptation and the requirement for all hands on deck, and then about the opportunity that climate change offers, which isn't much in terms of the actual environment and survival of biota and so on. But it could actually be a really positive thing in unifying across disparate groups. And in New Zealand, we suffered desperately from a very polarised community, industry on one side, the green groups on the other side, and that goes through into government as well. And if we can sort of take the all-hands-on-deck approach, could actually unify us and give us something to work together on instead of against each other.
Yeah.
So it's a positive
It's a
for me.
good point. Good point. Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think how thinking has changed. So if I talk about my personal sort of perception of climate change, it has changed since the last and ECWO and before. So previously, my personal perception was that climate change has changed, and that previously it was more about it was at least predominantly about gradual temperature change and gradual ocean acidification. But since then, and in the last couple of years, it's become more about extreme events, and it was these extreme events, sometimes of a somewhat longer duration, in the form of, for example, hurricanes and cyclones, storminess, but also marine heat waves. So that's, I think, a change in sort of my perception, and perhaps also in the broader community. And also the thing, adaptation. In the previous ECWO, people were realizing its rising importance, but it was still a bit of an add-on. That is probably an understatement, though. But now it's much more mainstream, I believe.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Others? Have you seen a new method? A gee whiz moment? Yes, Al.
Simply say that those of us who model, I was struck by the need for us to include multiple stressors because that is surely what the future holds.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll just quickly offer that I felt this conference was very supportive and that this is a nice science community to be part of.
Thank you. Are there any young scientists in the audience? We'd like to maybe, how have we changed your thinking? I'm not that you're not young. Oh, okay, all right, but you know what I'm saying. Are any of you students are still here? Come on, you can be brave. You saw what we did with the compass activity. Oh, come on, at least one. Oh, there we go.
So I like to think of the work that I do a little bit as a puzzle, and oftentimes I have no idea where all of the pieces are. And coming to conferences like this, I think, really connects me with the people that know where the pieces are and know where they fit in. And I just wanted to say thanks to everybody that's helped guide me in different directions.
No, thank you. Yes.
Kind of going off of that, kind of acknowledging both what we do know and also acknowledging what we don't know, and really collaborating and reaching out across disciplines within natural sciences, but also social science and economics and politics to kind of fill those gaps in the things that we now know we don't know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm not, any more takers? Oh, all right, great.
Just a comment with respect to the heat waves comment from before. That as a biologist, one thing I've been blown away with by this conference is just like the magnitude and diversity of like ecological and social ecological impacts that we've seen by these extreme events and things. And I would actually sort of say, rather than sort of be worried about sort of over-egging the heat waves things, we should really use what's come out of this conference as a bit of a call to arms, because I think like the just volume of really disturbing impacts that we've seen around the world is quite troubling, and I think we probably need to get out that and yeah, voice those impacts a bit more.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, it looks like we've worn you out, and so I will hand this off to our lead convener, Jason Link.
So I only have about 50 slides left, and it'll take an hour. Oh, just kidding. All right, here we go. Okay. All right, great. Okay. All right. Should be ready. So we've covered a lot of ground the past week, and I thank you for that. Let me give you a few wrap-up thoughts here. Then we're going to thank a lot of people who made this week possible. So one thing I would emphasize to you is check out the ECWO website. There's been a ton of photos uploaded there. All the plenary sessions have been videoed, and those are mostly loaded. certainly those up through yesterday. The full set of Boss's cartoons and more are all on the website. Please take advantage of that and share that with other people. And I think I echo Ann. I don't even have a Twitter account, but feel free to tweet all this stuff. I have no idea what that means, but do it. Let's keep the momentum going. There's a lot of excellent sessions. There's a lot of excellent science that you all do, but we're not done. Really curious to see what you will come up with even in 3 or 4 months. So there's the ICES Annual Science Conference, and then the Pisces Annual Meeting, the Johann Hjort Symposium next summer, the Ocean Observation Conference, the Ocean Society AGU meeting next winter. There's a lot of opportunities to get this together. And I echo the comments we just heard. This is really a unique community. Getting the natural scientists together to talk, even talking to physicists, if you're a biologist, is scary enough. But amongst the natural scientists, then talking with, and we say social scientists, but there's a whole range of social scientists here, economists, sociologists, anthropologists, and so forth. And I love that the community is getting together around this common issue. So if you have the opportunity to pull together joint sessions, to do various meetings, whatever, let's keep the momentum going at these upcoming meetings. That said, there will be an Equo 5. It says pause here for applause, so I'm pausing. And this Equo 5 talks are rapidly underway. I can almost tell you the details, but diplomatic wisdom suggests I shouldn't. But let me assure you that we're going to do this in about 3 or 4 years. There will be another opportunity to repeat this. And I'm really excited for those of us who've been to a few of these over the years to see what progress we'll make in the intervening time. So use these other meetings to test your work, but be prepared to show up in 3 or 4 years and show off even further progress of what we've made. All right, let me shift gears for a moment. A lot of people worked really, really hard behind the scenes that you may not know about to make this meeting happen. And I want to acknowledge our primary sponsors, ICES, Pisces, IOC, FAO, and our many colleagues here in NOAA. There was a lot of investment, both fiscal investment, but also intellectual investment, in-kind time. These organizations have stuck with this and moved it forward, and I want to thank them. So if you would, please join me in thanking these organizations. There were several other sponsors. You can see them there, the IOC, Pisces, the North Pacific Research Board, SOLAS, DFO in Canada, the NPAFC, FAO, I can't read that one, Ember, ICES, NOAA Fisheries, Ocean Networks Canada, the Monterey Bay Aquarium, IAEA, the Linfest Program, Women's Action Network, Compass, and the Maine Coast Sea Vegetables Organization. These organizations also contributed a lot of time, effort, and I would say love towards the subject. So let's thank them as well. So organizations are great. They're wonderful structures. They allow us to do what we do, but it's really the amazing individuals working in those organizations that allowed this conference to happen. So let me thank the Scientific Steering Committee, chaired by Ann Hollywood, Denise Breitberg, Melissa Cierci, Keith Griddle, Beth Fulton, Drew Vandermeer, Lena Hansen, Kirsten Holzman, Raleigh Hood, Tron Christensen, Myron Peck, Greta Petzel, got that one right now, Greta, Angelica Pena, John Pinniger, Grant Pitcher, Masami Nonaka, Mark Metien, Carol Robinson, Charlie Stock, Motomitsu Takahashi, Mary Louise Timmerman, and Sinjay Yu. These individuals really sweated over a ton of session responses, a ton of abstracts, pulled together a session set that was frankly very hard because you couldn't pick which session to go to. There was just an amazing set of talks. So I want to thank these individuals especially. Thank you. I'm going to come back to this slide in a moment. We had a communications team that really navigated a lot of interesting requests for interviews, requests for tweets. They navigated tweets. Are you allowed to say that? I don't know if that makes sense. But they were doing a lot of stuff, a lot of things online, connecting a lot of people. Terry Mikkinen, John Ewald, Vinicius Lindoso, Anita Searze, Kimberly Sullivan, Robin Brown, and Roger Griffiths really did not only come up with all the media elements, but also the communications plan and the outreach, and also worked with Compass. So I want to thank those individuals as well. Thank you. We had a core planning team, not that other organizations were not involved, but NOAA and UCAR out of Colorado and Pisces really were on the ground moving a lot of these things forward. So I want to recognize and acknowledge the staff. I would say stand up, but you're already standing up over there. Others really did, you can clap, it's okay, really did do a lot of behind-the-scenes work. I don't know if you've ever tried to register almost 700 people for a conference. It's not trivial. I don't know if you've ever tried to order watermelon sushi for 700 people, but that's not trivial either. All the different food, all the different events, the lunches, and can I get an amen for all the cobbler we had this week for lunch? So thank you. The local organizing committee, these were people who basically put up posters, managed a lot of the details, helped people run around, found stuff. Taylor kept everybody on time with her honorary people. We honored Europeans with a yellow card and then a red card. Amazing stuff. So Jay Peterson, Taylor Armstrong, Dory Dick, Edgar Ecke, Heidi Lovett, Josh Blockstein, Peg Brady, and Roger Griffiths really did keep things running smoothly for this week. Let's thank them. All right, I'm going to go back. We got the order a little out of the way, but I want to thank the coordinators. There were a lot of people from all these different groups that had, originally it was every other month, then it was monthly, then it was every couple of weeks calls, going back at least a couple of years. And these individuals really provided the oversight and pulled things together. And I'm looking at you, Hal. I don't know how many versions of the schedule you went through, but you got us here, and many others. So Robin Brown, Hal Batchelder, Wojciech Warinsky, Vivian Peel, I see sitting here, Carol Robinson, Salvatore Rico, Kirsten Eisensee, and Roger Griffiths really did pull this all together and provide that oversight. So let's give them some thanks. I think I have one or two more slides. Let me thank the symposium conveners, Manuel Baranje, Veronique Garçon, Shinichi Ito, and myself. I'm not going to thank myself, but I want to thank them. They pulled together just a lot of experience running this, a lot of perspective, and just provided a steady hand to keep us on track and really provide a lot of background and context. So let's give them a big thank you. So you've seen throughout these people, several people who were on several of these slides many times. I'd like to call some of them up, given that expanded role and that continual role that they had. And I want to acknowledge them in particular. So Veronique, please come up to the stage. Shinichi as well. Is Wojciech still here? Please come on up. Robin, please come on up. I just want you to recognize, personally, I entirely appreciate what you're doing. I would also call up Manuel Baranje and Salvatore, but they unfortunately had to go to New York City for the next event. So let me give you, again, a small token of our appreciation and personally thank each one of you. Anybody take? Again, please thank all these people. There are two other individuals that I'd like to entirely embarrass. And I want to thank Ann Hollywood. I've known Ann for a long time, and she's the Energizer Bunny. You just can't stop her, and just the amazing passion she has for this discipline in this field, the amazing degree of mentoring she's done to so many of us in this room, the amazing degree of vision she has had for a long period of time has helped us get here and has sustained these ECWOs. And her work here is really, in my view, embodied by a lot of you taking up some of her vision and some of her passion. So Ann, please come on up, and I'll give you something in a moment as well. And I'd entirely like to call Roger Griffiths up and embarrass him. So Roger and I worked together with a couple other folks and more or less led our agency's climate science strategy. We've been in the trenches in this business for a while. Roger's our climate coordinator for NOAA Fisheries. Some of you may or may not know that. But Roger is equally an Energizer Bunny. You might not see it as much. He doesn't like the limelight as much. This is great. We get to embarrass him. And the other thing that I really appreciate about Roger is there's a personal integrity that sometimes you don't always see in this business, particularly, I won't say which government, but in a government setting. And I love that about Roger, and I love his character. And we have the same gifts for these two, but there's one other gift I'd like to give them as well. So we got the same gift, and I know a guy who wrote this little book, and I signed it for each one of them with some personal things, and it's just a very touching moment, special moment for me to be able to give that to them after having worked with them for so many years. So Ann. All right. I think that concludes our program. I want to recognize that all of you have traveled long ways. Many of you have traveled long ways. Many of you have put a lot of time and energy into this. Many of you stayed up late in the hotels finishing your talks. So I recognize that, and I thank you for that. And I think we want to officially now declare this meeting closed. So thank you very much.
On behalf of all participants, we would like to express a special thanks to the Jason Link and Roger Griffiths and Anne Hollywood. They worked so hard. I know that every month we had a teleconference, but always they put many energy to prepare for this meeting. And this week we had a very good experience. So we would like to express special thanks to them. Thank you. for Jason. Please,
So on behalf of the EQUO committee, this is for the great achievement you've done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That would have been possible, really. You should do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, wait, one more thing. Please publish your papers in the journal. September 3rd is your deadline, and we're looking for them.
Thank you.